Alright, so this is going to be part one to what if Asta had Accelerator's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Like I said, on my community tab yesterday, this is going to be a collaboration with one of the other sins, and that sin is actually going to be Pride, which is Kid Zeus. So I don't think this is going to be a main staple of my channel. I'm just going to do part one, and then he'll do part two, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So I'll put a link in the description of his channel if I remember to. And yeah, so if you really want to see this part two of this, it's going to be on his channel. So yeah. So with that being said, let's get into the actual what if. So in this one, Asta, he's not going to have magic, right? This power that Accelerator has is his esper power. So in this one, Asta's going to be an esper. And we're going to go off the kind of information or the way that espers work in kind of a certain magical index. So how that works in their kind of universe is their kind of personal realities. And what they mean by this is actually, it's kind of like the power of belief and kind of doing that kind of own like mindset. And that's how they kind of create their powers, right? So in this one, since Asta does not come from a world that's very scientifically advanced, he has a different worldview than someone like Accelerator, but he is very smart. But there isn't that kind of foundation that's already pre-established like physics. So he understands physics to a certain extent, but he doesn't see it as physics. He sees it as magic, right? So that's the big kind of difference, and that's the reason why he'll be able to reflect things like magic, because he doesn't see it as something different like Accelerator does. So yeah. So in this one, Asta's going to be a lot smarter. He's going to be basically a genius, but he's still going to have that kind of same mindset and same kind of drive to train like he does normally, because he doesn't really know his magic. Because the way that his power works is he kind of calculates certain things, and because of that, they either move, stop, or get reflected, and he doesn't really know what this power could be. At first he thinks it's like wind magic, like but then he realizes he could do much more, and I'll get into that as the story goes on. So we would reach the day in where would have to kind of go to the kind of other village chief to see if they could get supplies for the church, right? And the same things would happen where that drunken man would try to steal Yunus's necklace, and also would come to and stop him, right? And as he tries to stop the drunken man from taking Yunus's necklace, the man would try to hit Asta, but instead of naturally kind of hitting Asta, this would actually reflect his punch, and this would actually feel like if he was like hitting a wall, and this would really hurt the man, and he would try again, and it would be even worse. So he tries to use his kind of magic on him, and they didn't really say what magic he had, but let's just say it's like water, right? I believe they didn't tell people what his magic was. Let's just say it's water. So he tries to use his water magic on Asta, but it doesn't actually work. It actually gets reflected back towards him. So he doesn't, after this, seeing how much power this kid has, he just kind of drops the necklace and kind of runs away, not knowing what to do, right? So Asta would give back his necklace, and this is when both of them would declare about them becoming the Wizard King, and that would kind of be their life goal, and the reason why they would start training like they do. So Asta in this one, he's gonna look similar to what he does in the anime, but I'm gonna say that his hair that used to be gray is now white, and his skin is a lot more paler, since the way that it would work is that Accelerator's powers actually reflects harmful UVAs, lights. So I believe that's the technical term for it. So yeah. And I'll get kind of, if you don't know Accelerator's powers, you can either see my first episode or first part of What If Deku Had Accelerator's Powers, where I go over some of the feats and things like that. But long story short, it's basically controlling vectors in physics, right? So yeah. Asta would look a little bit different than he does in the anime, but he would still kind of train to be strong enough to become the Wizard King, because he's heard a lot of stories about him, so he wants to be the best that he can be. So when he takes that position, he'll be strong enough to do it. So we would skip ahead around, when they're 15 and they're actually going to that grimoire ceremony, and Asta's very excited to see what kind of magic he has, because he sees himself with a lot of potential, and a lot of people do, but they sense no magic coming from him, which is strange, even though he has so much power. So he doesn't really know what's going on. So when they get there, Yuno would still get that kind of bright golden grimoire that he normally does, and he actually gets the 4-leaf grimoire that is wind magic. So everyone will be looking at they would be looking at him and being amazed, because a commoner just got a 4-leaf grimoire, right? And Asta's kind of just standing there, waiting for his grimoire, and he doesn't get one. And this is when he says, like, hey, is there something wrong? Where's my grimoire? And the person running the event, that kind of wizard, says, I don't know, try again next year. And Asta's heartbroken from this, and as he's like thinking about what just happened, he goes up to Yuno and tells him, this isn't over. I'm still becoming the Wizard King, and there's nothing you could stop. There's no way you could stop me from doing so. And then Yuno would be like, yeah, right, and he would just walk away. And everyone would start laughing, saying like, that kid's, he's gonna be the rival to that guy? Yeah, right. So Asta would, leave the area and start training like he would normally do, but he's kind of upset that he didn't get his grimoire. So as was kind of in that general area where he was during the anime, he's walking around, and this is when the 2 nobles would come and try to take his grimoire and burn it. Obviously, this is when would defend himself, and the 2 nobles would not be able to defeat him, giving the chance for the chain mage to come and sneak attack him. So he would knock out the 2 nobles and chain up Yuno in the process. So the chain mage tells Yuno that he's going to sell his grimoire to the highest bidder as a kind of art piece, right? And Yuno can't really do anything because he's chained up. So as this is happening, this is when Asta actually comes out and tries to save Yuno. So Asta rushes towards the kind of chain mage, and as this is happening, the chains go for Asta. But what happens is that in this case, Asta doesn't really know much about chain magic, so he doesn't have any experience with it. And unlike Accelerator, who sees everything very logical in terms of physics, right? He would be able to in this case, Asta would not be able to reflect it because he knows nothing about it. So I think Asta would be fast enough to dodge it, though, using his powers to boost him even further. And as he would try to get around the kind of chain mage, he would rush him again, and this time the chains would actually hit him because he'd be so close, right? And as this is happening, this is when the chain mage would say that, or before that, this is when Asta would declare himself, the future Wizard King. And as this is all going down, after Asta gets hit by the chains, this is when the chain mage actually tells Asta that there's no way you could be the Wizard King because these chains detect how much magical power someone actually has, and they say that you have none. And as this is going down, Asta, is getting really depressed, and he feels like giving up. But before that happens, he actually gets his grimoire, and this is the 5-leaf grimoire with the anti-magic swords. So as this is going down, he gets a sword and rushes towards the chain mage. So like usual, Asta would just nullify the chains and get straight to the guy there. So he'd be able to kind of easily defeat him that way. So yeah. After that happens, this is when Yuno would, get out of his chains, and basically they would have that fist pump moment, just how they normally would in the anime. So they would use those 10 months to kind of train and things like that. So Asta would learn how to use a sword through the kind of swordsman that was there at the time. And I'll go over, or I guess either me or Kidzus will go over that part when we get to that flashback. But yeah, he would learn swordsmanship from him, and then Asta would take this time to study kind of different types of magic, so he'd be able to reflect it. So yeah, and the reason why he was able to reflect the water before is because what's it called? Sister Lily has water magic, so he's been exposed to it. So yeah, so those 10 months would pass, and the kind of trip there would be a lot faster, since Asta has his esper powers to boost him further, and he's actually able to keep up with Yuno on his broom. So yeah, so they would arrive in the capital pretty early, or pretty soon, and when they get there, they would look around the capital and admire all the things that are on display, including the castle that's in the background. And they would, they would kind of dream about how they would be the Wizard King, and how they would bring the church there to kind of live there. And both of them kind of say to the other that that's not going to happen, because they're going to become the Wizard King. And they continue on their date, and they get in line to get their number for the kind of Magic Night selection process. So they would go to that same process about getting their numbers, and people would be surprised that Yuno has a 4-leaf, and people would question Asta's grimoire because how dirty it looks and things like that. Seke would still kind of talk to Asta because they were right behind him, or they were behind him, and they would still have those same conversations as usual. So they would get to the different process. They would go to the kind of open yard, and they would just be walking around, and they would notice that, or people would notice that Yuno does not have any anti-magic birds on them, which is strange since most people there do have that. But they see that one person actually has a lot of birds on him, and that's actually Asta. And he would try to get him off, and eventually he would just use his powers to push him off, since he doesn't want him to be near him. And as he's doing this, he actually reflects and hits Yami, causing him to stumble back a bit. And this is when Yami would go up to Asta like, "Hey kid, what do you think you're doing?" And he would try to grab him, but then this is when Asta would reflect his hand, and Yami would feel like as if he was touching like a wall, and he'd question like, "Hey kid, what's your magic?" And this is when Asta would be like, "I don't have magic," right? And as this is going down, this is when Yami would be kind of curious of what he means by this, and he would say like, "What was that power just then?" And Asta would be like, "I'm not too sure, but I've had it all my life." So as this is going down, this is when the kind of fireworks go off, and Asta goes to do the first kind of trials for the Magic Night selection process. So it'd be pretty easy to do a few of them for Asta in this one, even though he has no kind of magic. So for the kind of target practice, he could shoot like gusts of wind at that the targets, and this would kind of it'd be really powerful. And for the kind of broom test, it's people could tell it wouldn't be magic, but as he would jump in the air, he could have a constant flow of air pushing the kind of broom up. So that would be the case, but it wouldn't be true magic, and the knights would notice this and they would feel no magic coming from him, which would be strange, but he would still somewhat pass, even though it technically wasn't magic. And then we would get to the kind of fight. So Asta would still fight Seke, because Seke would think he's a kind of a weaker individual since he has no magic, and he would tell Asta about how he only wants the job for to get like a cushy job, and this would get Asta pretty mad, since it's been his dream to become a magic knight and eventually become the Wizard King, and he wants to protect people. So as the fight starts, Seke would use his bronze magic to create that kind of dome to protect himself, and also to impress the different squad leaders. But as the timer goes down, or as the timer starts, this is when Asta would rush towards Seke and basically use his sword to nullify the magic there, and also hitting him. So the fight would be over in a few seconds. After this happens, Yuno would still go through the same process that he would normally go, fighting that noble and things like that. So when we come, we would skip a few hours ahead, and this is when they actually have the squad leaders actually select their people they want to be in the Magic Knights. And when Asta actually goes up, Yuno would still, before that, Yuno would still go to the Golden Dawn just as normal to give him the best chance of becoming the Wizard King. And this is when Asta would go up, and he would wait for them to raise their hand, but no one would, and he would still be standing there even past the normal amount of time, and people would be like, come on, just move on. But he wouldn't. He was like, I'm not gonna give up, right? That's what he would say. And this is when Fogolion would be like, or not Fogolion, this is when Yami would actually release his magic pressure and basically tell him, like, the reason why we're not picking you is because you're too much of a risk, or you're too much of a unknown. You have no magic, yet you're able to nullify it, right? And you think you're gonna become the Wizard King like that? And this one also would kind of be somewhat intimidated, but at the same time be determined, and he would say yes. And as he says this, Yami, turns off his pressure and actually smiles. He's like, you know what, kid, I like you. Come join the Black Bulls. And this is when everyone would be shocked, including the other captains. And Asta would accept, and he would join the Black Bulls. So yeah, I'm gonna end it here, and then the next part will be on Kid Zeus's channel. So if you want to see part 2, go check out his channel. I'm not sure when he'll upload it, but it should be relatively soon. So yeah, with that being said, remember to like and comment and things like that. So yeah, this is gonna be the end of the video. So yeah,